Why has a single people been hated for more than 2,000 years? It was not just Hitler. It was not only the Inquisition, nor the Crusaders, nor the Romans. It was almost all of history, from the Roman Empire to the present day. Jews have been persecuted, expelled, blamed, and killed. But why? What is so different about them that they have been constant victims for centuries? Prepare yourself for a story that is uncomfortable, intense, and absolutely necessary. But before we dive into this epic story, make sure to subscribe to the Might and Regas channel. Leave a comment telling us which other legendary civilization you would like to see featured here. Now then, imagine a world where you can worship any god as long as you don't refuse to worship all of them. That was Rome, an empire that conquered with sword, but also with religious tolerance. There, Egyptians prayed to their gods, Greeks offered sacrifices, and dozens of people brought their beliefs as cultural baggage, as long as they didn't oppose the imperial court. Everything was negotiable, everything except what could not be negotiated: absolute loyalty to the emperor, who was considered almost divine. And then they arrived. The Jews were not like the other conquered peoples. They did not bring a pantheon of gods, but only one who, to make matters worse, stood above all others. They would not accept images, statues, or deified emperors. To Rome, this was not just unusual. It was defiance. It was rebellion disguised as faith. Tacitus, the great Roman historian, something like the 1st century influencer, had no hesitation in describing them as stubborn and arrogant. They didn't eat like everyone else. They didn't work on Saturdays. They didn't not worship Caesar. They didn't mix. And worst of all, they didn't want to mix. Emperor Tiberius, fed up with their inflexible customs, ordered their expulsion from Roma in 19 AD. The excuse: they were corrupting Roman citizens with their faith. But the truth was different. Rome didn't know what to do with the people who refused to surrender culturally and spiritually. Tensions increased over time. Religious differences became political suspicions, and suspicion turned into oppression. Finally, the Great Barbar Revolt broke out between 132 and 136 AD. It was the last massive attempt by the Jews to free their land, and it failed. The Roman response was brutal. Jerusalem was destroyed. Jews were expelled from their own city. Their practices were banned. Their traces were erased, and officially their history as wandering people began. For Rome, the Jews were a cultural anomaly, a people who didn't fit into the great imperial puzzle. For the Jews, Rome was just another pharaoh trying to break their faith. But the damage had been done. From that moment on, an idea took root that would last for centuries: that the Jews were a people impossible to integrate, a foreign body within the body of the empire, and that was more frightening than any army. Because fear of the different, when combined with power, almost always end in persecution. For centuries, the Jews were seen by the Romans as a people difficult to assimilate. But when the Christianity began to spread, an even deeper crack appeared, because the new faith born from Judaism soon began to see its parent as its enemy. At first, the followers of Jesus were Jews. They followed the same scriptures, the same traditions, the same festivals. But something changed for them. Jesus was not just a teacher. He was the Messiah, the Son of God, the Savior. And the Jews did not accept him. From that point on, the vision became inevitable. A powerful and dangerous doctrine emerged. Supersessionism. According to this belief, Christianity was not merely the continuation of Judaism, it replaced it. God no longer had a covenant with the Jews. Now, his chosen people was the church. That idea changed everything. The letters of the New Testament, especially those addressed to the Romans, began to be interpreted as direct criticism of the Jewish people. It was said that they were blind to the truth that they existed only to demonstrate divine grace to other nations. The message became distorted and resentment grew. It did not take long before Christian leaders began labeling Jews as killers of Christ. St. John Chrysostom, one of the great orators of the church, called them imperials of enemies of God, and his word was not just faith, it carried authority. Although for a time there was no widespread physical violence, theological hostility turned into social exclusion. As early as the 2nd century, the Council of Elvira forbade Christians from marrying Jews or even sitting down to eat with them, and this segregation became customary. But it did not take long for hatred to turn into blood. In the later 11th century, Pope Urban II called for the First Crusade, the goal to liberate the whole land from Muslim control. But many Crusaders, before even reaching Jerusalem, decided to practice their zeal by attacking Jewish communities in Europe in cities like Worms, Mainz, Cologne, and Metz. Thousands of Jews were brutally murdered in Speyer. Even the bishop tried to protect them, and without success, they were offered a choice: conversion or death. To the Crusaders, the Jews were internal enemies, guilty of having rejected Christ, and therefore they deserved no mercy. What for some was a whole war, for others was an endless massacre. The message was clear. Their loyalty to their faith made Jews permanent targets. Christianity, which preached love for one's neighbor, found expressions when it came to the people who killed the Messiah, and so theological difference turned into systematic violence, a spiritual rupture that never fully healed and that planted the seed of modern hatred. After the Crusade, hatred against Jews found new ways to justify itself. Accusing them of killing Christ was no longer enough. Now, darker and more dangerous, rumors began to circulate. It all began in Norwich, England in 1144. A boy was found dead and without any evidence. A monk accused the Jews of having murdered him as part of ritual. From that moment on, one of the longest lasting and bloodiest lies in history was born: the blood lie. The narrative was absurd but effective. Jews kidnapped and killed Christian children to use their blood in religious rituals. It did not matter that there was no proof. It did not matter that rabbis denied it again and again. Truth no longer mattered. Only fear did. And with fear came looting, torture, and massacres. Many rulers saw in these accusations an opportunity. They could confiscate property, erase debt, and blame a common enemy. What better way to consolidate power than to point at someone who could not defend themselves? But the lies did not stop there. In church synods, increasingly humiliating measures were imposed. In 1215, the Fourth Lateran Council decreed that Jews had to wear distinctive clothing. That way, anyone could identify them and avoid them, or point at them, or attack them. It was a meticulous They could not mix freely or work like everyone else. How were they supposed to survive? Here, another key case of puzzle appears: money. The church forbade Christians from charging interest on loans, but trade continued to grow. Someone had to fill that gap, and that someone was the Jews, not out of greed, out of necessity, since they were barred from owning land, joining guilds, or practicing common trades. Money lending became barred from owning land, joining guilds, or practicing common trades. Money lending became one of the few paths left open to them, and that made them even more hated. They became the lenders of Europe, bankers to kings and merchants, and soon the narrative shifted again. Now it was said that Jews were greedy, corrupt, obsessed with gold. The stereotype was complete. Art helped reinforce it. In churches and public squares, grotesque images were carved of Jews suckling from Esau, the infamous Jew dancer, as a symbol of absolute contempt. Some of those sculptures still exist today, like stone skulls that time has refused to erase. Hatred no longer needed logic. It had history, religion, politics, and now economics as well. Jews were not only considered guilty for what they believed, but also for how they survived. And surviving in that era was almost a crime. The 14th century, Europe is burning with fever. The Black Death sweeps across the continent like a cursed shadow, devouring entire cities. There is no cure, no explanation, only death and terror. In times like this, logic is the first thing to die. Someone spilled Roma. The wells were being poisoned. By whom? By the Jews. They said because they were not getting sick as often, because they lived in close-knit communities, because they were different. And in many minds, different meant guilty. In 1348, a man named Emma was brutally tortured until he confessed that, under orders from a rabbi, he had contaminated water sources in Venice and Toulouse. That confession, extracted through screams, was enough to light the fuse. What followed was a wave of irrational violence. In Strasbourg, on February 14th, 1349, nearly 900 Jews were burned alive in public square. In Basel, the entire Jewish community was exterminated. In Zurich and Geneva, the pogroms were just as merciless, but the plague did not stop. And as the number of dead increased, so did the thirst for revenge. It did not matter that there was no evidence. It did not matter that Jews were also dying from the plague. For many, the lie had already become sacred truth. And once again, fear turned into an excuse for extermination. According to some estimates, nearly 60% of European Jews died during the plague years. But not from the disease, from the flames. Pope Clement himself tried to stop the massacre, issuing papal bulls defending the Jews. But it was like trying to extinguish a wildfire with words. The mob did not want reason, it wanted blood, and even in the midst of horror, there were exceptions. In Milan, for example, the Duke chose to protect the Jews. He knew they were essential to the economy. There, the community survived, but it was a solitary exception on a continent in flames. The plague did not only kill bodies, it killed consciences. And when it ended, it left behind empty towns and hearts filled with hatred. Antisemitism was no longer just prejudice, it was a habit, an automatic reaction. Because when an entire society learns to blame the same group, truth stops mattering. The 19th century, Europe vibrates with scientific advance. Progress seems unstoppable. Electricity, locomotives, telescopes, vaccines. But alongside science, pseudoscience emerges, and in that climate, antisemitism multitudes once again. It is no longer only about religion or economics or fabricated writers. Now, the argument is biological. In 1879, a German journalist named Wilhelm Maher coined a new word, antisemitism. He did so to remove the religious element and transform it into something supposedly rational. The new narrative claimed that Jews were not simply different. They were another race, an inferior one, incompatible with European civilization. Intellectuals like author Logobino wrote treatises on the inequality of human races. Eugenics, a distorted and manipulated branch of biology, began to gain influence. It classified peoples according to genetic quality, and you can guess where Jews were placed in that hierarchy. Once again, science was used as a weapon. With these theories came concrete restrictions. Jews were excluded from universities, barred from certain professions, and prevented from marrying non-Jews. In several countries, the opportunities to migrate were drastically reduced, and all of this was justified by so-called scientific studies. But the hatred did not stop there. In 1894, the Dreyfus Affair shook France. Alfred Dreyfus, a Jewish army officer, was falsely accused of treason. The press condemned him before the trial even began. Public opinion demanded his head, although he was later exonerated. The message has already been sent. Being Jewish was enough to be suspected. The same spirit-filled conspiracy theories that still survive today. One of them was the protocols of the elders of Zion and fraudulent texts claiming that Jews had a secret plan to dominate the world. Despite being exposed as fabrication multiple times, many still believe it, and so, with ink and paper, the ground was prepared for something for wars. Because when racism disguises itself as science, hatred no longer needs justification. It becomes law. It becomes policy. It becomes inevitable. After the First World War, Germany was broken, defeated, humiliated, and ruined. In that desperation, millions searched for answers, a culprit, a face for their pain, and one appeared. Adolf Hitler, a frustrated veteran, found in antisemitism his most powerful message. He did not invent it. He inherited it and turned into the doctrine. In his worldview, Jews were the root of every evil: economic crisis, moral decay, communism, capitalism, everything. He claimed a racial council, and the only solution was to remove it. In 1935, the Nuremberg laws legalized hatred. Marriages between Jews and non-Jews were banned. Citizenship rights were revoked. Jews were excluded from schools, universities, and public office. They were no longer neighbors, no longer Germans. They were others. When the Second World War began, that exclusion turned into confinement. The first came the ghettos like the one in Warsaw, sealed neighborhoods, overcrowded without food or medicine, surrounded by barbed wire. Then came the transport, ghetto cars, not to prison, but to factories of death. In January 1942, at the Vance Conference, high-ranking Nazi officials drafted what they called the final solution to the Jewish question. It was the coldest phrase ever used to plan genocide. A perfectly organized machinery was born. Auschwitz, Treblinka, Sobibor, Maidan comes with one objective: extermination. Upon arrival, prisoners were separated. The fit were sent to forced labor, the rest to the gas chambers. Doctors like Joseph Mengele carried out inhuman experiments. Children, twins, pregnant women, all became test subjects, and when they were no longer useful, they were killed. But perhaps the most chilling reality is this: it was not only the Nazis across Europe. Ordinary people, neighbors, employees, shopkeepers collaborated in the deportations, some out of fear, others out of hatred, many out of indifference. In just a few years, 2/3 of Europe's Jewish population was murdered. It is estimated that more than 6 million people died, not from disease, not from war, for being who they were. And when the world saw the ovens, the piles of bodies, the suitcases labeled with names, it was too late. Centuries of hatred had reached their climax, and the civilization that considered itself modern and rational had failed in the most brutal way imaginable. Today, antisemitism no longer disguises itself only as religion or science. Sometimes it disguises itself as politics, as ideology, as activism. But the mechanism is the same, turning one group into the scapegoat for everything. The language changes, the violence does not. And the most dangerous part is that we have been here before. History does not repeat itself exactly, but it does repeat its patterns: isolation, suspicion, lies, silence, the habit of looking away. Hatred does not disappear on its own. It is inherited. It is taught. It reinvents itself. And if it is not confronted with memory, education, and empathy, it returns. Because every time antisemitism resurfaces, it does not come back with torches and uniforms. It comes with soft words, with harmless jokes, with comments that normalize contempt until one day it is too late. Remembering is not an option, it is an obligation. Because if we forget what happened, we will live it again. The solution is not found only in laws or memories. It lies in living memory, in recognizing the warning signs, in educating, in speaking out, in refusing to stay silent when hatred disguises itself as opinion. Remembering is not about looking backward. It is about preventing the same abuses from opening again. Let it not be only about never again, but about not even once again. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video and are passionate about this kind of content, subscribe to the Might and Wiggers channel, so you don't miss the upcoming video and can discover more fascinating stories. See you in the next video.
Need a friend to share.